ladies and gentlemen, Tony Buzbee, the lawyer who filed the lawsuits, the civil lawsuits against Sean P. Diddy Combs, and the one that got dropped with Sean P. Diddy Combs and Jay-Z, is in hot water with the judge. Man, I told you it was something sketchy about this. Let's get into some of the straight game.
Blackjack. Life is like those cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, Platinum Artist, Platinum Songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor. Click on what appears to be the little bell notification right below this video if you would like to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game. Also, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the lawyer Tony Buzbee, in court drama, basically this has landed Tony Buzbee, the lawyer for the accuser against Diddy and Jay-Z, in hot water. Not for that case alone, but because Jay-Z had the nerve or the wherewithal, the resources to shine some light on this situation. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Buzbee improperly filed numerous actions against Sean P. Diddy Combs in New York federal court, a judge said. The judge said that Busby used his co-counsel's credentials. Listen, y'all. Tony Buzbee used his co-counsel. That means his partner in law, right? His co-counsel's credentials for the court's document filing system. So the federal court has a system that each lawyer must sign up for, and they each have their, so when they file documents and things like that for the court, they can basically do it through an online system. Tony Buzbee used his co-counsel's credentials for the court's document filing system. That attorney's apparent complicity in his improper conduct may be grounds for sanctions, the judge said. Whoa. This is crazy, y'all. I knew it was something that was brewing, and it looks like this money grab, right? You know, so desperate that Tony Buzbee would allegedly use his co-counsel's credentials for the court's document filing system. Tony Buzbee's handling of a slew of federal sex abuse lawsuits he brought against Sean P. Diddy Combs has landed a fellow lawyer for the hip-hop mogul's accusers in hot water. The New York federal judge overseeing one of the lawsuits has issued a stern warning to a local attorney with whom Busby filed several cases in the Southern District of New York after it came to light that Busby was not allowed to practice law in that court. So to circumvent the fact that Tony Buzbee knew, in fact, that he could not file those cases because he couldn't practice in New York, he went and got a local lawyer and used the local's lawyer's credentials to actually file those cases. Ladies and gentlemen, these cases are not about any kind of victims who suffered any kind of wrongdoing, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why that is because, like the judge says, this puts all of those cases in jeopardy. It speaks a whole nother language other than justice, and it speaks greed, selfishness, and just flat out dishonesty, right? Listen, U.S. District Court May Carey Visksil wrote in a Friday ruling that Busby improperly filed and litigated this case. Listen, y'all. She said he improperly filed it and litigated this case using the credentials for the court's document filing system of a local attorney, Antoine Curtis, whose apparent complicity in his improper conduct may be grounds for sanctions. So they're talking about sanctioning the local attorney for allowing Tony Busby to use his credentials to file these cases, some of these cases against Diddy. Man, this is crazy. See, they not really pushing this on the news like they pushed the initial news in regards to Diddy. I think, sometimes it's about things being fairly covered, if you will, right? This is crazy. And the lawyer basically who can practice in the Southern District of New York is about to be sanctioned for allowing Tony Busby to use his credentials. Listen, the judge ruling rejected Busby's already withdrawn motion to represent Combs' accusers, Candace McCrae, on a pro hac vice basis, a request to temporarily practice in a certain jurisdiction where a lawyer is not licensed. So Tony Busby knew he wasn't licensed, skirted around the situation, filed the case in using another lawyer's credentials, right? And now has been called out on it, and the lawyer that allowed him to do so is about to get in trouble for it. It says a plaintiff's counsel is on notice. When a judge puts you on notice, it's serious. Plaintiff's counsel is on notice that further failure to comply with the procedural rules that govern this court and her ethical responsibilities will have grave consequences, she wrote. Amazing. Curtis did not immediately respond to requests for comments in reference to the situation. The judge wrote in a 2-page order that Tony Busby improperly filed numerous actions in this court and scores of submissions in this case and other cases using the attorney's credentials. Boom. Amazing. Amazing. None of these lawsuits have merit. None of them. None of them. This is an attempted money grab. Like I told you before, the situation with Jay-Z and Diddy, that lawsuit, it didn't happen. It never happened. Jay-Z never met that girl, wasn't at no party with this young lady, none of that. This was all conjured up by Tony Busby, like the young lady said, right? Like I said, I got to go with that. The judge wrote in a 2-page order that Tony Busby improperly filed numerous actions in this court and scores of submissions in this case and other cases using another attorney's credentials. He wanted to get at Diddy's money that bad. He did that without having even applied for regular or pro hac vice admission to the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, this is hella horrible. So he used the other lawyer's credentials, but there's a process that he could have followed when he could have, applied for a regular or pro hac vice admission to the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. But he didn't even do that. He unilaterally decided that to hell with filing for that. I'm going to use this other lawyer's credentials and I'm going to go skirt around that because I'm Tony Busby. Well, in the Southern District of New York, the judge said, we don't care who you think you are. You can't practice in the Southern District. Not only that, the guy who let you use his credentials, right, could be sanctioned. Like, who would do that? Busby denied using Curtis electronic case filing ECF system credentials improperly, telling basically saying that in an email that that's just not at all true. Because you say it's not true doesn't mean it's not true, because the judge and the court knows that it is true, or she wouldn't have written that in the order. You understand what I'm saying? Tony Busby saying, I did not have access to my local counsel's ECF, period. Busby said. Busby didn't have to have access to it. The cases were filed under the guy Curtis's credentials. Doesn't mean that Busby had to have access to it, right? He used that, but Busby was the litigating attorney, right? Not Curtis, but Busby was the litigating attorney. Because, remember she said, Mary Kay said she wrote in Friday's ruling that Busby improperly filed and litigated this case. It wasn't just that they were improperly filed, but he actually litigated the case, and he knew that he wasn't supposed to practice in the Southern District of New York. Who is this guy? In regards to the law, who does he think he is? It's crazy. Last week, Busby formally withdrew himself as the plaintiff attorney in more than a dozen federal lawsuits. So just a week ago, Tony Busby withdrew himself as the plaintiff attorney in more than a dozen federal lawsuits against Diddy that he filed in the Southern District of New York, a federal district court that includes Manhattan, right? Wow. So we know Sean P. Diddy Combs is locked up, basically waiting, to go to trial in May. And there have been a slew of allegations and accusations and lawsuits thrown his way. Like I said, I'm all about, the law and what it means to practice and being fair and just, right? This here situation, it not only just muddied the waters, well, maybe now not muddy the waters, because things are being revealed that we normally wouldn't see. You know what I mean? Because Jay-Z has the financial means. Sean P. Diddy Combs has the financial means to be able to fight back through law, through litigation, right? And it seems some of the things that we thought were true were coming out, that now are coming out, and we're finding out that they're not, right? Busby, listen, Busby was not permitted to practice in the SDNY, meaning the Southern District of New York, and only file for admission to try cases in the court on January 29th, months after he first filed lawsuits against Combs, beginning in October, according to court documents that were reviewed, right? You understand that? So he was filing cases way back in October 2024, but only decided to, file, to basically file for admission to try cases in January 29th, 2025. So you got October, November, December, January. So that's basically 4 months, if you will, right? Busby previously said that Jay-Z, whose real name is Sean Carter, had filed a court grievance against him in an attempt to try to keep him from getting admission to the SDNY. Busby accused the rapper, who has been targeted along with Combs in a now dismissed lawsuit by one of Busby's clients, of using the grievance process as a weapon. Now, the first thing they like to say when we get in trouble, if you get in trouble, or when we've got, as African Americans, get in trouble, it's like, well, if you don't have anything to hide, you don't have anything to worry about. So if Jay-Z filed a grievance, right? If Tony Busby wasn't doing anything wrong, then he wouldn't have anything to worry about, correct? Absolutely. But that simply is not the case, right? Right? Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, he didn't respond, but in denying Busby's admission to the SDNY, listen, in the judge denying Tony Busby's admission to the SDNY in a February 13th order, the chair of the court's committee of grievances wrote that Busby has appeared in cases in this court without seeking admission. He doesn't even give a damn. Tony Busby doesn't even give a damn. He's hoping that he doesn't get caught and he can skate through. Court papers show, therefore, the petition is denied. So he filed for petition. They looked back and they said, you know what? He's been actually litigating in this court, knowing damn well he wasn't supposed to. So the petition that he filed to be able to practice in the SDNY, therefore, they denied the petition. Busby said in an email Monday that he's never had a grievance against him in his more than 25 years. Well, I guess what? He never filed a case in the Southern District of New York against Sean P. Diddy Combs, and what he said was going to be 100 of them John Doe cases, and he's never had a case against Sean Carter and Sean P. Diddy Combs. That was not true, and that he did not totally vet. But I guess what? It's the first time for everything. And his petition was denied based on not Jay-Z's actions, not Sean P. Diddy Combs' actions, but based on Tony Busby's actions. Wow. And it basically said this all started because Sean Carter, a party defendant, filed a grievance against me without my knowledge. What? Listen to this, man. Listen to this. Without his knowledge, the SDNY admissions committee didn't give me notice of the grievance until the day my admission was denied. The basis of the grievance was that I had appeared and practiced law in the SDNY without formal admission, the Houston based lawyer said. And that's true. They went back and looked and saw that he had practiced and litigated cases back in October, November, December of 2024. So they were on point in filing the grievance. If Tony Busby did not do anything wrong, he wouldn't have had nothing to worry about. He got caught. He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. And it didn't work. Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to what's going on. Busby said that he was advised by New York counsel that until the grievance issue was cleared up, he should formally withdraw from all of the federal cases he brought against Combs, which he said he has. So every one of those cases that Tony Busby filed against Sean P. Diddy Combs, he can no longer be the lawyer under. Will those cases have the same motivation, same alleged evidence, right? The same commitment as they did when he was the lead attorney on them? This remains to be seen, right? Basically, it says some of the federal judges granted the withdrawals without comment. At least two said the withdrawals, the withdrawal motions were moot because I had never actually appeared, contrary to the allegations in the grievance. Busby said, not all of them they said that he appeared in. It was some of the cases that they said that he had litigated, knowing that he wasn't able to practice in the Southern District of New York. I don't know why this is so hard for Tony Busby to understand. He's supposed to be an intelligent, smart lawyer, right? He knows what he did wrong. And he's being held accountable for it now. You know, like I said, he wanted to hold Sean P. Diddy Combs accountable for what he's alleging that Sean P. Diddy Combs did. But the way he's gone about it is kind of like, yeah, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth based on the fact that this wasn't about his clients. This was about him. This was about him. You see, He added, it's all over the board and super confusing. It's all over the board now and super confusing. He's trying to wiggle out now. That he needs some wiggle room. Give Tony Buzbee some wiggle room now, y'all. He said it's all overboard and super confusing. I'm just trying to pursue claims for alleged victims now. I thought they were victims. When he did the press conference in New York, in Texas, when it first went out, he was like, these victims, and come on. He said, I'm just trying to pursue claims for alleged victims and want to do it correctly and professionally. No, he didn't, because he knew he couldn't practice. He knew that. But he knew it. There's no ambiguity there. You know whether you can practice in a certain jurisdiction or not. He's a 25-year attorney. He should know the law. He doesn't get that excuse or the ability to say that from that perspective. Right? He's saying, I hope to get this all sorted out so I can do so. They already denied your petition. There's no sorting anything out. Slickster, he got caught. It's just as simple as that. And it's sad. It's sad for the people if they are alleged victims. I don't believe it. The John Doe, Jane Doe, okay, I don't believe it. Like I said, once again, I don't believe that. I didn't believe the situation with Jay-Z and Diddy that got dropped. The young lady came out and said it was Tony Buzbee who coerced her basically into filing the case and adding Jay-Z to the case. Full stop. Right? In the meantime, Tony Buzbee said that he's focusing on the other wave of lawsuits that he's filed against Combe in New York State Court, where he says he is licensed. So he's trying to get it any way he can. This is crazy, man. This is crazy. I'm continuing to push those zealously as required by my oath, he said. Come on, man. Busby said that his namesake firm is still representing the plaintiffs in the federal lawsuits against Combs, but that Curtis will handle all the formal appearances in the cases. Amazing. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what to say. I'm like I said, this is something new. This is something that I've never ever seen before, where the judge calls the lawyer out for doing something like this. And the judges, a lot of judges, they're very intelligent because they're lawyers too. And it's like, look, you knew you couldn't practice. You just wanted to file as many lawsuits as you possibly could, and thinking that if you got some kind of judgment, you would chase down Sean P. Diddy Combs' money. That's basically what it is. It's sad and it's sickening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see what happens with this, though. But yeah, it really just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, because it clearly shows that this wasn't about the clients, because you do not take somebody who felt like they had been wronged and just unilaterally decide that I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to circumvent the court rules. I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm not going to file for any kind of admission to pro hack vice. None of that. I'm just going to go, look, we're going to use your thing. And wow. Your boy DELRAY, straight gang.